I'm Yemisi Akindele. I'm the founder of High Achievers Academy, a supplementary school that helps support students, mostly from disadvantaged families, to get into top independent schools. We get them in through bursaries and scholarships. And I've done this for over 20 odd years, so yeah. My background is African, so my parents are Nigerian. I was born here in England, I was born in Birmingham. But my mum came into England in the 60s on a scholarship from Nigeria. And I truly believe if she hadn't been in England, I probably wouldn't have been born in England, surely. So I always take the view that the reason I was born in England was because my mum had the opportunity to come to England on scholarship, because I doubt if her dad would have been able to send her to England. So I felt I had a duty to, one, educate myself, educate my children, and everybody else that needs to be educated. Not any odd education, but a really good top education. And that's when I began to look into how do you get into these top private schools, which we call independent schools. And so that started off with my children. And my youngest was the one who really pushed the boundaries. So I was able to get him into Harrow School for Boys, though not on scholarship, nor on bursary, but the others had gone on bursary, which was absolutely amazing. So my daughter Tala had gone on the scholarship, which was then offered by the bank, HSBC. My daughter Lola went to Southampton High School and she went on a bursary. So on doing this, I thought, well, all I did to get these kids into this position was prepare them for these 11+ exams. So I set up the supplementary school and I started coaching kids from underprivileged families. And to date, trust me, we've got hundreds of kids that have gone on bursaries to these top independent schools. Some of them have gone on to become doctors, lawyers, and it's absolutely rewarding. So yes, I'm very passionate about making sure we get children, regardless of where you're from, not necessarily underprivileged families, but mostly, I would say, they are from that background. When Lola was age 9, 10, I started looking into the grammar schools, to see if I can't afford to send them to an independent school, at least let's try and get into a really good grammar school. And so applied to your Henrietta Barnett, St. Michael's Grammar School for Girls, Watford Grammar School, all the grammar schools. And to date, she's still on the wait list for those schools. She's 37 years old and she's still on the wait list. So thank goodness for the independent school. So I was able to get her into Southampton High School for Girls. At the time, Mrs. Scott was the head and she was absolutely amazing. She rang me up and said to me that, look, your daughter's written these exams. We're really, really proud of her. She's done extremely well. Would love her to come and we're happy to support her with a bursary. She's now actually on the advisory board, on the bursary advisory board, as somebody who supports what the school's doing. A girl called Chidima, who went to Down House. Initially, she'd written those exams when she was 11. Unfortunately, though she passed the exam, she wasn't awarded a bursary. So mom's very ill and she has a disabled child, so obviously she's not able to work. And I believe dad was a cab driver at the time. So I called mom up one morning. I said, you know what, there is what we call 12+, should we try? And she said, yes, let's go for it. Now, this is a child who had ordinarily told me years back that she would love to be, in the medical field. And I met her like 3 years after. She's now aged 12. And she's telling me she wants to be a hairdresser. And I don't know how we go from being a surgeon to being a hairdresser. So I queried this and she said to me, oh, this is what she's been encouraged to do at her comprehensive school. So we went for it. We did a 12+ and she got into Down House, and Mrs. Mark Hendricks, the head lovely woman, gladly gave her 100% bursary. Chidima is now, I believe, 26 years old. She's now obviously a professional in the medical field. She's done really well. We had another boy. He wrote the exams for Harrow School. Again, was meant to have gone to a local school, but of course his he's bright enough to go to an independent school, but for the fees, would never have been able to apply. So I spoke to the mom about a bursary that I know exists at Harrow. It's called the Peter Beckwith Scholarship, and we pushed him. He wrote those exams, he got into this school, and he now works for Citibank as an investment banker. So yes, so it does work. These schools, bless them, they do try. As you know, there's bursaries and there's scholarships. So scholarships obviously is based on your academic ability, or sports, or music, or some sort of ability. Bursaries, on the other hand, obviously is means tested. You can get both. You can get, the bursary and scholarship together, which makes up sometimes up to 100%. But it's really difficult because one, there's a large competition out there, and are you prepared enough to get them? And again, how many bursaries can the schools actually offer? I believe, according to a report that came out last year from the Independent Schools Council, it's about 30% of students get that assistance. And I know some schools give up to 100%, majority give between 10 to 20, 30, you get a lot of that. As an all-rounder, you can get between 75 and 80%. But it's really, really needed. It's helped a lot of children, especially children from special educational needs backgrounds. So if you have a child who's got some sort of learning difficulty and cannot function as well as they ought to in the state sector, the independent school's there for them. And without this bursary, where does that leave that child? And I did a report a few years ago when I was writing my thesis on exclusion of black boys at school. And what we found is most of the exclusion was not based on the child being naughty, it was based on the children who had a learning disability. And unfortunately for that child, it's not their fault that they've got dyslexia, it's not their fault that they've got autism, but of course the schools can cope. It's just that they don't have enough funding to deal with these situations, and these children find themselves, kicked out of school. But in the independent sector, it's small class sizes, they're able to deal with these situations, and yeah, it does help. So bursaries are really, really important, honestly. 20% VAT on school fees is disastrous, because schools that offer bursaries now is going to have a great impact on their funding. So it's going to limit the bursaries that they're able to give out. Now, what does that mean for the kids that are there? Obviously, if this means it transfers to the parent, which means they have to pay, the fees get increased, you'll find that some parents, some will keep the kids at school, obviously, those that can afford to, but how many can? Which means even some wealthy parents, that might just tip them off the skill that they want to be on and take the children out of school. Question is, where do they take them to? So they're taking them back into the state sector, probably into one of the grammar schools or the partial selective comprehensive schools, because you've got those. You've got schools that people have moved into those areas where those schools are, just so much so they can access those schools. And that's what you'll find, because these parents, where they might not want to pay those extra fees in an independent sector because they've got more than one child, what they definitely would be happy to do is relocate. So they might sell where they are and move into an area that's got a good grammar school. So it's going to have an impact on the comprehensive schools and the grammar schools that we have at present, which means the locals who ordinarily would apply to those schools don't get those schools any longer. So it's going to have a great impact. I think I read that they're planning on putting this extra money, which will give them about £1 billion a year, putting that into bringing in more teachers, about 6,500 more teachers to fund that. The schools already need those extra teachers. So bringing more children in, we're going to need double of that. So where's that coming from? So that's a major, major problem. I think that tax element is just going to ruin an already bad situation. So yeah, no, I don't think that's going to be good for us at all.